I just watched Claude Code build me an entire website in less than 5 minutes and I didn't even write a single line of code. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to take you from having no experience with Claude Code whatsoever, from being able to build your own projects and even selling them to businesses. So I am going to cover the setup, how you can actually use it, the features, the commands, and tips that actually make you look like a professional. Quick intro before we start the video. My name is Faik Bashard, I'm 18 years old and I'm an upcoming entrepreneur in the AI space. It would mean a lot if you left a like in the video and you subscribed. So let's get right into the video and get our hands dirty with Claude Code. Alright, so before we actually do start, we do need a subscription with Claude to use Claude Code. And if I'm starting out, I would go with Pro because it fits within a lot of budgets and you don't actually need to pay that much and you get a feel of how Claude actually is. But obviously, if you're going to start using it more, or maybe you're using it for a company, you might want to go with the higher or the max. Alright, perfect. Then we are going to be using lovely Visual Studio Code today to actually use Claude Code. And there are multiple ways that you can actually use Claude Code. One of them is actually including a terminal, which is over here. However, we are not going to be using the terminal as it's more complex and it just requires a bit more terminal knowledge, and it's easier for beginners if you start in Visual Studio. And another reason I really like Visual Studio is because you can access all your files and it's just so much easier to see what Claude Code is doing and what it's interacting with. So yeah, for today's tutorial, we're going to download Visual Studio for Windows or Mac OS, and then we're going to get straight into using Claude Code. Alright, perfect guys. Once you've downloaded Visual Studio, we're going to be in this page, and what we're going to do next is we're going to go over and head to this icon where it says extensions, and then we're going to go ahead and type in Claude. So once we've typed Claude, we're going to go over and click here, and then you're going to click on install, and then you're going to have this little Claude icon here at the top right, and we're going to click on it, and you're going to be prompted on having to log in with your Claude account. And then after that, you can actually access Claude Code and mess about with it. Alright guys, so now that you've downloaded the Claude extension and you've actually logged in into your Claude account, you're going to go over and click on the Claude icon over here, and then it's going to lead us to Claude Code, as you guys can see. And we're just going to quickly close out of this tab. And now, awesome. So this is the UI, this is how it looks like. And obviously it might look a bit confusing. You can even ask Claude Code, who are you? And as you can see, it says some nice little funny words, ruminating. And it says, I'm Claude Code, Anthropic's official CLI for Claude. You guys get the point. But anyways, what we're going to be doing next is we're actually going to be running it in a folder. So rather than Claude being all over the place, it can actually access a specific folder that we give it, and that way we can actually build our projects in it and everything would just be so much more organized. So if we go over here and click open folder, we can make a completely new folder, which we can name anything. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder called Claude Test. And we're going to select this folder. And as you guys can see, we get led to the screen and we can see our folder over here, Claude Test. And VS Studio actually has their own AI agent, but we're not going to be using that. So we're just going to close that, close this. Perfect. Now here we are. Now, as you guys can see, we have Claude Code in our own little project folder, and then Claude Code can actually write and put anything in this folder, which is pretty nice, pretty neat. And you guys get the point that you can access all of your files over here, which is pretty neat and just makes everything much more organized, much more simpler. And before we do actually build anything, we are going to go ahead and enable this one setting. So if we go over to this gear icon and click on settings and we type dangerously, we can see this setting will pop up. And it will probably not be ticked for you, but you might as well go ahead and tick that. And what that does is, rather than Claude Code asking you every time for approval to do something, it will do it itself. And obviously it will tell you that it's making that change. And I know what you guys might be thinking, it has dangerously in it, so you don't want to enable it. But just trust me on this, it will speed up Claude and it will just make everything much more nicer and smoother. So let's go ahead and enable that, and then we can click out and actually get into building something. And another thing that I'd like to go over real quick is that there are different modes which you can access over here. And there's obviously ask before edits, which what it does is it asks for your approval before it actually makes any changes in something that you're building. Like let's say you're trying to build a workflow, it will ask for your approval every time that it makes a change or actually deciding to build something. And then there's obviously edit automatically, which is kind of like a lesser risk of bypass permissions. What it does is just it asks for approval in some scenarios, but then in some scenarios it actually doesn't ask for your approval. And there's plan mode as well, where you can actually review with Claude Code on what you're trying to build, and it will give you a whole plan on how it's actually going to be. Like, for example, let's say you're trying to build a website, it'll give you a whole plan on what the website will look like and all the different things that it will build, etc, etc. And then there's obviously bypass permissions, which, let's say you have your plan, you have your prompt, you just want to build, get straight into it without wasting any time, you would click on bypass permissions. Those are the 4 different modes, which are pretty nice and you guys should be aware of. Perfect. So now that we understand the basics of Claude and we've got everything set up, for our first use case, we are actually going to be building a snake game, which we can access on our browser. So we can go ahead and tell Claude what we want. Hey Claude, can you build me a snake game that I can open on my browser? And it has to be HTML. Thank you. And then we press enter. And obviously it will give us all these funny words, worrying, shimmying, all of these funny words. But obviously right now it's just thinking, and we're just gonna wait and I'll come back when it actually builds it for us. All right, perfect guys. As you guys can see, the snake game has actually been made for us by Claude. And as you can see on the left over here, we have snake.html added to our project, which is pretty nice. So bringing back to what I was saying earlier, you can see all your folders and files over here, which is pretty nice. You can just access them anytime and you can see what Claude is actually doing. And then here we have red dots and green dots, and basically what that means, in the red dots it failed, and in the green dots it actually means it passed or completed whatever it was supposed to do, which is pretty nice. Another thing that I like to say is, guys, that you have to be curious on what Claude Code is actually doing. You know, you guys have to treat Claude Code almost as your AI best friend and understand what it's trying to do. And if you don't understand something, you can always ask Claude Code and it will explain it for you. So if we go over here and we actually try out the snake game, let's see how good it actually is. All right, here we have it. Now we're just gonna open it real quick. And as you guys can see, here we are in the snake game, and let's actually test out how good it actually is. But yeah, you guys get the point. That is pretty nice. Now let's say I want to add maybe perhaps an animation when the snake actually dies. So what we'd do is we'd go over to Claude Code and we'd say something like, hey Claude, when the snake dies, I want it to have an animation where perhaps maybe star circle the snake, or just cool animation which you could add. And then we could press enter and then we'll see what the results are. And one thing I'd like to say is that you can see what Claude is actually doing over here. So it says I'll add a particle explosion plus shockwave death animation, and here what it's doing is editing the files in the snake HTML. So this was what it looked like before, but now it's added this, which is pretty cool. So now you guys can see the game has actually been updated and it tells us what it has edited. So let's go ahead and actually try out the game and see the changes. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and start the game. We're just gonna get an apple and then die, and as you guys saw, it had an animation when it died. So that is pretty cool. So it did add the animation just like we wanted, and yeah, pretty happy with that. All right, another thing I'd like you guys to be wary of is your usage. So if we go over to our browser and we type in Claude.ai, we can head over here and go to settings, and if we go and click to usage, we can actually see our usage. So right now, our current session, we have 12% used with Claude, and obviously that resets in around 4 hours. And then obviously we have weekly limits as well. So yeah, that is something to be wary of, to see how much you're actually using Claude Code, because obviously once you run out of your usage, you actually can't use Claude Code anymore. Another thing related to usage, guys, is what model you're using. So if we go ahead and type in /model, we can see over here we can switch our model. So there's default, which is Sonnet 4.6, and that is the best of both worlds in terms of Haiku and Opus. Haiku being the fastest but also used for the least complex tasks, and then Opus having the highest usage, used for the most complex tasks. And then obviously Sonnet is between Haiku and Opus, where it's using a medium amount of usage and it's also used for complex tasks but not that complex. So yeah, I like to keep my model at Sonnet 4.6. Maybe if I'm building something fast, I'll switch to Haiku, and if it's really complex, I'll switch to Opus. But I recommend Sonnet 4.6 for everyday tasks. Another thing that I'd like to cover is a Claude.md file. And what that basically is a framework of Claude to follow. So it's basically just a set of rules on what Claude should do and what it should follow. So if we want to create our own MD file, we can actually make it ourselves manually, or we can even type in slash in it. And what that will do is it will make a Claude.md file for us. And as you guys can see, it's doing it right now. And obviously, if you type slash in it, it's gonna create an MD file based off everything that you've made in your project. And so that is pretty cool. So now let's go ahead and see our Claude.md file. And basically having a Claude.md file just helps with Claude actually being faster, more productive, and actually providing results that you really want to see. So that's why I think having a good MD file is actually very important and very nice. Another thing that I like to say is that more rules or more lines of instructions is actually not better. It's actually better to keep your Claude.md file short and simple, because the more instructions you have, the more context Claude has to read. And obviously that links back to more usage. So again, I'd like to say, keep your Claude.md file short. You're going to have less usage as well. So yeah, it's just so much better. All right, perfect. So now let's say that we are actually done with this and we want to make something completely brand new. We type in slash clear. And what that would do is now we are cleared with that conversation and we can start from scratch, something completely brand new. I'd also like to cover what skills and MCPs are. So the first thing that we're going to cover is an MCP. And basically, short term, it stands for Model Context Protocol. And basically what it is, it lets Claude Code connect to external tools and data structures. And even if you don't understand, you can even ask Claude Code what an MCP actually is. So let me just do that right now. Hey Claude, what is an MCP? And can you tell me what MCPs I have connected to you right now? And then as you can see, Claude will be telling us all these funny words, affecting, smooshing, and then it will be coming up with an answer. So here, as you guys can see, Claude Code actually gave us our answer over here, and it tells us what an MCP is. And I even asked it what MCPs I have it connected to, and it gave me all the MCPs that I am actually connected to right now. So that is pretty cool. There's also Claude Code skills, which help Claude Code actually understand specialized skills, and it basically just helps it perform better. So for example, if I ask Claude Code, hey Claude, what are skills? And can you tell me the skills that you currently know? And as you can see, Claude Code will actually start generating and thinking, and then it will actually tell us what skills are, and it's very cool. So here, as you can see, it says skills are reusable prompt templates that extend Claude Code with specialized behaviors. And here, as you can see, we actually have all of our skills, and this is a custom skill that I got actually, so it can create visual art designs and posters, etc. as PNG or PDF files. But you can also download skills from this one website, which gives you templates. And it is pretty nice, and I will leave it in the description below. However, you guys probably will see the URL as well, because I am going to go over it right now. And so as you can see, if we head over to skills over here, you can see all these pre-made templates. And let's say we actually want to go and download for something like SEO optimizer. We can do this, and what we do is we'd copy it, and then we'd head back to Visual Studio, and we'd actually paste this in over here and be like, can you install this? And then Claude Code would actually install it for us, and then we'd have a skill which is an SEO optimizer. And obviously you'd press 1 for all of them, which is basically a yes or accepting. And then as you guys can see, we actually have this skill downloaded. So if we go over here to .claude, we have our skill MD over here, which is pretty nice. Now let's say we want to SEO optimize our video title for our YouTube video. So I'd be like, hey Claude, I have a video idea, and the title is 5 different AI tools that everyone should implement, and I want you to use the SEO optimizer skill. Can you please do that for me? And then what it would do, is start using the skill for me. And so as you guys can see, SEO optimizer skill is a green dot, so that means it has been accepted. And then here it would give me all these different titles, and it'd give me a strategy, and I just think it's pretty cool. It would even give me the tags to use and the thumbnail SEO tips. So that is pretty cool. Actually, that is a really nice handy skill, which I'm probably going to end up using myself as well. But just thought that's really, really nice and handy. All right, guys, perfect. So this is the moment you guys have been waiting for, and we are going to go ahead and get into our second use case. And we are actually going to be using Claude Code to build us a website. So we are just going to give it quite a vague prompt, and as you guys see, I have switched my mode over to plan mode, so that before it actually does build anything, we can plan it and we can review ahead of time and see how it actually does. So let's go ahead and say, hey Claude, can you build me a website that is a landing page for a coffee shop? I wanted to have a clean and minimal UI with nice animations and a nice front end design. Can you please also add a hero navigation page with contacts and join us perhaps? And as you guys see, that is a very vague prompt. I came up with that at the top of my mind. So let's go ahead and see how that actually does. So here, as you guys can see, it is ready. Claude actually gave us our plan and we can review it. We can go through the context, the file, what it's going to do and what it's going to add. And it's obviously very nice. As you guys can see, it also tells us what design system is going to use and the animations. So let's go ahead and say yes and auto accept. Now it is actually going to go ahead and build it for us. So let's see how that does. All right, perfect guys. So here we have it. Claude Code actually built us our website. And so as you guys can see here is coffeeshop.html, and we can see it over here as well in our Explorer. So now if we go over and see the website, see how good it actually is. So over here I have it loaded up. And as you can see, wow, amazing. Let's see if the animations, yeah, animations work. Everything's working amazing. It's really good. It's looking amazing. The front end design is actually not that bad either. It's actually pretty good. And considering we didn't even have a skill for a front end design, it's very, very good actually. And then obviously all the pages are working. So as you guys can see, you can actually build a pretty good, decent website with just using Claude Code, which is amazing. And you don't even need any coding experience. I also wanted Claude Code to actually change the name from Emberground to Fightground. And it actually did do that. And as you can see here, it did think, and it was thinking to itself. And then here you can see all the changes that it actually made. And so if we go over back to the website, we can see that the name has been changed to Fightground, which is pretty cool. So if you're not happy with something, you can always ask Claude to actually make a change for you. Again, you can just talk to it like it's your AI assistant or your AI best friend. Alright guys, so that was it for today's video, and we are going to go over a brief summary of what we went through and discussed in this video. Setup and subscription info, and we also went over VS Code integration, core commands and usage. We also went through model switching through multiple modes such as plan or bypass permissions. We also went over Claude.md, MCP and skills, and we also went over 2 solid use cases. Please comment down below and let me know if you guys did enjoy this video. And please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to show me some support, and let me know if you guys actually want to see more videos like this, and I'll make sure to upload them. Anyways, that was it for today guys. Take care. Bye bye.